channel of Kemkominfo TV. Okay, we are now moving to the first session of the conference, which is opening remarks by His Excellency Mr. Johnny G. Plate, Minister of Communication and Informatics, MCI, the Republic of Indonesia. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome His Excellency Mr. Johnny G. Plate.
Thank you, Wardania. Good morning, distinguished speakers, representative of global 5G ecosystem industries, representatives of Indonesian telecommunications companies, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome everyone to this conference on Indonesia's 5G roadmap and digital transformation. Many thanks to our distinguished speakers and all participants for joining us. It is my pleasure to open this conference. These two topics that I have focused on since my first day in this ministry. I hope that the speakers will share their insights, data, experiences about the power of 5G to accelerate digital transformations of a nation, especially emerging country like Indonesia. We have been fortunate to assemble a great lineup of speakers representing the global ICT community as we have today, ranging from ITU representative, GSMA, the Global Associations of Telco Operators, GSA, the Global Associations of Vendors, ATSI, the National Associations of Indonesia Telco Operators, and of course, from Ministry of Communications and Informatics of the Republic of Indonesia, which will be represented by Dr. Ismail, the Director General that is responsible on managing the critical and limited natural resources of 21st century radio spectrum. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, the COVID-19 pandemic has accentuated how our world is rapidly changing, including the process of digital transformation in Indonesia. The Central Bank of Indonesia, BI, has indicated that until August 2020, there have been of 140 million e-commerce transactions in Indonesia. Subsequently, such progress contributes to Indonesia's information and communication technology sectors, which also has remained robust despite the pandemic, with a double-digit growth at 10.83% in the second quarter and 10.61% in third quarter of 2020 year-on-year, as reported by the Indonesia Central Agency on Statistics. Grasping this momentum, Indonesia's Ministry of Communications and Informatics, so-called MCI, through the Telecommunication and Information Accessibility Agency, BAKTI, strives to work on our best efforts to bridge the existing digital divide in Indonesia. To date, we Indonesia have rolled out more than 348,000 kilometers length of land and undersea fiber optic cable, including over 12,000 kilometers length of Bakti's Palaparing National Fiber Optic Backbone Network. Indonesia has also built more than 500,000 base transceiver stations and utilized 9 satellites, telecommunication satellites in this case, to fulfill our domestic demand for adequate connectivity. In addition, we are also planning to launch the high throughput satellite 150 gigabits per second Satria-1 scheduled in the third quarter 2023. We have continuously improved the digital infrastructure, including in all villages that have yet to be reached by the 4G connections. However, the major task to ensure adequate, accessible, and affordable 4G as the basis to develop the 5G network remains pertinent. Therefore, Indonesia is currently seeking to accelerate its 5G spectrum allocations initiative. It is imperative to farm and refarm the 5G spectrum to meet the demand of 2047 MHz frequency spectrum for mobile broadband, both 4G and 5G, by the end of 2024 in all layers. These existing and new candidates band are as follows: coverage layers under 1 GHz, 700, 800, and 900 MHz. Capacity layer between 1 to 6 GHz, 1.8, 2.1, 2.3, 2.6, 3.3, and 3.5 GHz, and super data layer above 6 GHz, 26 and 28 GHz. In moving towards the 5G deployment, Indonesia has conducted 10 trials throughout 2017 to 2019 to learn the potential applications and use cases of 5G services, such as distance learning through holographic interactions, remote surgery, IoT for smart city, and autonomous vehicle during Asian Games 2018. In 2020, Indonesia is focusing on the 11th trial to explore the possibility of coexistence between 5G network and the fixed satellite service to be utilized in 3.5 GHz band. Additionally, Indonesia is seeking to optimally utilize microwave link as the second option after fiber optic, since the super high frequency of E-band and V-band may also serve high capacity backhaul for the broadband services. It is also important to note that the 5G deployment will demand large capital expenditure, in particular small cell densifications of 5G base stations, and will require advanced digital ecosystem. The new capital of Indonesia, the new capital city of Indonesia, will be the best and potential candidate city to deploy first 5G in Indonesia, aside from some industry estates and high traffic public areas, which may also be possible. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, DMCI is also supporting the accelerations of digital transformation through 4 comprehensive pillars, such as the deployment of more powerful and inclusive digital infrastructure, the improvement of digital literacy and human resources as a means to upskill and reskill Indonesia's digital talent, the adoptions of supporting technologies and the primary legislation in the ICT sector, including through the completion of Personal Data Protection Law, Indonesia's GDPR, General Data Protection Regulations. Notwithstanding the importance of the first 3 pillars, the last pillars on regulations reaffirms our view on the imperative to uphold and improve data sovereignty, including its cross-border data flow based on the principles of transparency, lawfulness, fairness, and reciprocity. Based on these principles, together we can foster a digital ecosystem that is conducive for innovations and investments. In addition, also, the Indonesia's Omnibus law omnibus bill on job creations, so-called Undang-Undang Cipta Kerja, the law number 11 2020, will also allow telecommunication operators to share the spectrums for the advanced technologies such as 5G, which will create an ultimate efficiency, combining the share of passive infrastructure and active networks. These implementations of agile and flexible regulatory measures is needed as a major breakthrough to support an inclusive and competitive digital environment and foster the rollout of 5G networks in Indonesia. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, speakers, let me quote in Latin phrase, per aspera ad astra, through the hardship to the stars. Among the stars in the skies rest our great natural resources, radio spectrum, which requires our hard work to utilize and to optimize it. 5G network will become a game changer with far-reaching impacts to connectivity as the backbone of digital transformation and a key enabler of economic growth. We believe that we must work hard to carry out our great task of adopting new technology to improve our productivity through the 5G network in the future. Digitalizations and connectivity are already having a profound effect on improving equality of opportunity, access, and inclusions, and 5G will accelerate this. The Indonesian government has initiated some affirmative policies and actions to encourage the accelerations of 5G introductions in Indonesia. Yet, as we are in this together, I call all stakeholders to collaborate and to work hand in hand for the 5G deployment. This includes your valuable inputs and feedbacks for our initial 5G spectrum roadmap, which will be exposed and explained in detail by Dr. Ismail in the second session of this conference. Through strong cooperation, I believe that any hardship in 5G deployment will be overcome, and the 5G network will have Indonesia jump into a giant leap in transforming Indonesia as a smart nation. To the advanced Indonesia, to the start. Thank you very much.
Yeah, His Excellency Mr. Johnny G. Plate, Minister of Communication and Informatics, the Republic of Indonesia. Thank you very much for the opening remarks. And like what you say, that let us collaborate and work hand to hand for the 5G deployment. And we do hope that some challenges in implementing the 5G technology can reach the target to be available in 2024. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, honorable participants, let us welcome our next guest speaker. He will share the insight and his experiences and the topic about the IMT 2020, the 5G specification and consideration. Mr. Shed Amirias, Program Management Officer, IT Regional Office for Asia and the Pacific.
Thank you, Nancy. Thank you for this opportunity. Can I share my screen?
Yes, please.
Please do let me know if you view this. Can you view the shared screen?
Yes, Mr. Amir, please continue your session.
Uh, can you see the screen?
Yeah.
Can you see this? Uh, I'm not able to
See
share
that?
because someone else is sharing the screen. Could you allow me to share? Thank you. Can you see the screen, please?
Yes, we can see your screen, Mr. Amir. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for this. Thank you, first of all, Rahim, for this opportunity for ITU to be a part of this very important forum. And as the Excellency the Minister has explained, the 5G is indeed a game changer. But it requires a very careful policy making and work in collaboration with all the stakeholders. So in my presentation, I will go through two of the things on 5G. We call it in ITU, the term used is IMT 2020, which is similar to 5G. So I will go through the specifications and the later part, the considerations that could be used for policy making and other related issues. So this would be my flow of the presentation, and at the end it would be the challenges and consideration that I would like to make. Now, first of all, let's define the technicalities. What we call 5G in the industry term, we use the term that is IMT 2020, which has now been fully approved through the consultation with the governments, and the specifications have also been validated now. Just this last week, these specifications have been validated, and some of the candidate technologies have been evaluated. So generally, we use the term IMT, but under the IMT, there are different versions like IMT 2000, roughly equivalent to 3G, IMT Advanced, like LTE Advanced, and IMT 2020 that is used for 5G technologies right now. Now, before I go into the details of what we expect from the 5G, I would like to share this screen and request that if you can remember these, especially the diagram on the right hand side, because this will help explaining the specification. So the 5G, it basically is much more than the IMT Advanced, and it has three basic pillars: what we call enhanced mobile broadband, massive machine type communication, and ultra reliable low latency communication. These are basically dependent on what kind of usage and what kind of uh, uh, specifications are expected from a network that we call IMT 2020. And this is how we have evaluated the different technologies to be a part of 5G. Now, this process in ITU, it started way long in 2014. And in and last week of November, the Working Party 5D, which is the study group under Study Group 5, they have evaluated some candidate technologies. Now, there are three technologies that have been evaluated and had the successful evaluation. The three are 3GPP, 5G, SRIT. This SRIT stands for Set of Radio Interface Technology. 3GPP, 5G RIT, that is Radio Interface Technology, and one 5GI submitted by TSD SI India. Now, these three have been evaluated according to the criteria and have been approved for further evaluation. Now, the next step is that these evaluations would formally go to the member states, and we expect that the approval would come for all these evaluations by the end of January. Now, the next question would be, what are these specifications against which these technologies have been evaluated? I will not go much into the detail because this is a long list, but I have picked out some of the big ones. Now, for technology to be a candidate of IMT 2020, there have been some specific thresholds that have been evaluated. As I mentioned that in the diagram, the criteria and the thresholds have been evaluated and been proposed according to some the best specification or the capabilities that could be delivered by 5G. For example, in case of data rates, the usage that evaluates is an enhanced mobile broadband. And for the specification, where any technology that could be called as 5G must have a user experience data rate of downlink of 100 megabits per second and a peak of 20 gigabits per second. This is the threshold for usage in EMBB. We used only EMBB because in case of massive MMTC and the ultra reliable, the data rates would be lower. The highest data rates would be in the use cases where EMBB is used. So this is the one criteria against the specifications of 5G. The second was the spectral efficiency. Again, it was evaluated for EMBB requirements. The peak is expected in download to be 30 bits per second per hertz. But the average, it changes in the downlink and uplink criteria depending upon where it has been installed. The test environments are indoor, dense urban, and rural EMBB installations, and the average values are as in the chart down below. Now, the next are two important ones are latency and connection density, as IMT 2020 is expected to also deliver the IoTs. And IoTs, for IoTs, it would be a massive number of transmission or TRX equipment within one coverage cell. So this evaluation was made specifically for MMTC, the connection density, and the minimum requirement for 5G is to support 1 million devices per square kilometer. For latency, there are two separate requirements. One for EMBB, that is 4 millisecond, which is a little, on the higher side compared to URLLC, which is ultra reliable low latency communication, which is required, for example, for autonomous vehicles or for remote surgery. And there, the latency has to be 1 millisecond. I think lastly, I will just explain the reliability again was for the URLLC, and for mobility. The evaluation was made for the user scenarios of mobile broadband, enhanced mobile broadband. And here you will see there are three different environments, and in the chart below you can see that the traffic speed and the data rate, it changes, and the requirement changes as the speed goes higher. So it needs to support mobility at for example 10 kilometer per hour, but in cases where it is around 500 kilometer per hour, for example in high speed trains, it needs to support connectivity in that scenarios as well. Now, having said that, it's quite evident from the specification against which the technologies are evaluated to be IMT 2020 suitable, that the functional drivers of the IMT or the 2020 or the 5G are the three: enhanced mobile broadband, URLLC, and MMTC, based on the usage scenario. But there are two other functional drivers that are inherently inbuilt in the 5G, that is security and power efficiency. Now, these are cross-cutting, and these are requirements across all the three major usages that we have explained. And this is where the use cases are built up. Now, let's go towards what could be the use cases and how the use cases are being developed, because this is a very important if you are going to roll out any national 5G rollout. You have to make sure that there is a requirement for it. Now, for the use case analysis, the World Economic Forum, they divided all the usage scenarios into three different categories: the primary industry sector, which is the regular sector like manufacturing, transportation, agriculture; secondary, like automotive, logistics; But it's the technology specialty area that is taking up right now the first requirements of the rollout. For example, in South Korea, the niche sector that is driving the requirements for 5G is gamification. There is a lot of requirement for high-speed gaming on mobility. So this is one of the key area where the gamification, where in South Korea the rollout was of the 5G was done. Similarly, for example, in China, the technology specialty area of drones is something that, and Internet of Things, that is something that is driving the rollout of 5G. So in each country, there could be a different usage scenario that would require a rollout of ecosystem, and this is why it has to be evaluated before we go into the 5G rollout, that what country need and where would be the business case for 5G. Now, before going into the consideration part, let's see where the majority of the cases of the different usage scenarios are. What we see, and based on the report from the World Economic Forum, the first usage scenarios would be the fixed wireless access, which has some limited speeds, but as the time goes into 2020 and 2021 timeline, smart home applications that would require higher speeds and latency around 10 milliseconds and lower would be coming up. Now, as we go towards 2022 and 2024, the reliability concern comes in, and this would again Industry 4.0 and later, and manufacturing and other primary industries come in, like the healthcare. Following, and when the coverage goes higher, if you see the in the bottom of the page, the coverage is growing. The As the coverage grows, the widespread IoTs and reliability and connection density would increase. Then some massive machine type communication applications would come up. So it's not that every application would come at one time, but again, the devices and everything would come at some particular time as the rollout and the technology improves. And also the cost of the devices and the different equipment goes down. Now, going to the second part that I said towards the consideration on the national level, you have to see 5G not as a technology, but as an ecosystem. It should not be taken up as a shift from 4G to 5G, increase in speed or something like. But because it generates a whole ecosystem. And when you generate an ecosystem, I think the best explanation that could arrive here is that to initiate this ecosystem, you need a spectrum. And when the spectrum arrives, the infrastructure will come up. When the infrastructure is available, devices would be needed, and then the services would come in, which will increase the impact. And then to increase the impact again, as more spectrum is needed. So it's a cyclic structure of 5G ecosystem in which security is inbuilt to ensure that the connectivity is as secure as possible. Now, building up on this, the first point was the spectrum. Now, there are a lot of spectrum that has been identified in the lower band, as mentioned by the Excellency the Minister. There's a lot of spectrum that has been identified for IMT, around 1.8 gigahertz in the lower bands that is available. But there is, after the WRC 19, there has been around 17.25 gigahertz that has been identified for IMT applications in higher bands, the millimeter wave bands. And this is, now the total allocation for IMT is around over 19 gigahertz. Now it depends on the national governments how they make it available for their licensees to roll out 5G or any other applications for IMT. Now, going towards some of the adoption, the second point in the ecosystem on the infrastructure. But we have seen recently there has been a lot of countries that have rolled out 5G. In this slide that I've took from Open Signal, you can see that the 5G users are using the infrastructure, and you can see the comparison of the 4G and 5G speeds in different countries. The blue ones are the 4G speeds, and the 5G speeds are in yellow. And you can see in all the countries that have deployed, there is a huge difference between ranging from 1.8 times to 12.5 times the difference in which 5G is like around 12.5 times faster in Saudi Arabia compared to 4G. The other thing is how much the users are taking up the 5G. Now, in the analysis by OpenSignal over the period of quarter three, they evaluated that around 20% of the usage has grown on 5G, while 4G is also available. So in many of the cases, around 6 countries, more than 20% is being done used for 5G, as 5G is available. So it's slowly the public is also making use of the available 5G infrastructure when it make those available. And this availability and uptake will grow according to the data that we have from the Global Data Technology and Intelligence Center. Just like the 4G adoption, where it's slow at the start, but when it reaches the one threshold, then its adoption is kind of exponential in a sense. This is for Asia Pacific, some of the predictions that we have. Now, going towards some of the challenges, again, using the same terms as I used in the ecosystem. Now, there are different challenges for different infrastructure and different components of the ecosystem. And herein, what we think is that this is not only the responsibility of the government, but has to be a stakeholder-based approach. For example, if you see in the chart for the spectrum, it's not only the regulatory and policymakers, but also the organizations like ITU, GSMA, APT, to make sure that the spectrum remains available and used in a harmonized way. Similarly, technology operators are also involved because they need to make sure that they use the spectrum in the most efficient way as possible. Similarly, other stakeholders are involved as categorized for different challenges in uh, different roles of the ecosystem of the 5G. Now, going towards the last part, some of the considerations, it's very heartening to see that some of the considerations have already been adopted by Indonesia. For example, the spectrum roadmap that has been developed. I look forward to hearing the DG on this. But there are some others, for example, the consideration of spectrum sharing and especially the pricing, because the amount of spectrum that is required for 5G is very high. And if we are going to use the similar spectrum pricing mechanism, that is going to be a little difficult to in rolling out. Now, one of the important categories for the 5G rollout is the backhaul, because the backhaul has to be really good and to make sure that the 5G wireless is available. In this, there could be some consideration on having some incentives for investment. Fiber tax could be lowered or removed. And of very special importance is the wailing agreements. It's highly recommended that a standardized wailing agreement is arranged, and in this case, the federal government and also the local governments, they could be they could sit together and develop a standardized wailing agreement, because the requirements of backhaul is going to be very high, and the wailing agreements, they could slow down the progress of the backhaul, especially in the cities. One of the other important that the minister also highlighted is the wireless backhaul. That it is not only the usual point to multipoint microwave links, but also the HAPS and the high throughput satellites. They are also to be considered in rolling out 5G, because they are also an alternative instead of using the backhaul to the fibered backhaul. You can use the HTS and HAPS satellite to have the rollout in a much more higher geographical coverage. The last is on the policy related some of the issues, including the sharing of infrastructure. And we know that the cell radius would be very small for the 5G pico cells, especially in the cities. So the infrastructure sharing is very important. It's not only the ICT and telecom infrastructure that is going to be used, but also the, as we call, the street furniture that is going to be very important as a passive infrastructure to roll out 5G transmissions. Excess cost has to be lowered down, but one of the major initiatives has to be to make an asset database, a database that is available for to all the telcos that are rolling out the 5G, so that they know where they could what kind of street furniture like the CCTV post, lamp post, fiber network ducts they could use, and this the asset database for ICT use could be compiled at a local government level. And if this database is readily available, then it helps the operators in planning and not duplicating any of the existing infrastructure. Then there is also a requirement for 5G test beds. It's heartening to know that there have already been some tests around in Indonesia to see the 5G pilots. But here, universities and academia also take a very good role, and they have they could do some test pilots within the university campuses using some temporary licensing regime to evaluate the technology that could be used. Now, going to from science to some of the issues that are, I would say, not scientific, but due to the social media, they raise a lot of concern. Now, as you might have seen on the social media, that there is public apprehension against 5G, that it will cause a lot of issues on the human health and everything. So this is something that could be addressed, I think, right away, even before we start having a rollout. Now, to assist this, we in ITU we have prepared ITU EMF guide. This is in the form of a app that could be installed on your mobile, and also it's available on the website of ITU. It's translated in all the 6 UN languages, and it's garnering a lot of interest. For example, in the neighborhood Malaysia, they have translated all this EMF guide into their local language, Malay, to make sure that the public understands that there is no need to comprehend. Some of these 3 posters that you see there come from Malaysia MCMC, and you can see one of them is in the local language, and just seeing the pictures you can see that they have targeted children, they have targeted some of those who know a little bit of wireless communication, and provide information to clarify any apprehensions that they have. So in this way, the acceptability it could rise, and we are not saying to give false information, but at least a true information could be given using this. I think this is my last slide. I would be ready to take the questions. Thank you. Over to you, Madam MC.
Yeah. Yeah, Mr. Syed Amir Riaz, Program Officer of ITU Regional Office for Asia and the Pacific. Thank you very much for the expose, and now we get a clear overview, especially about IMT 2020, the specification and the consideration. When we are talking about 5G, it means about the ecosystem cycle represent the need for the stakeholders collaboration and alignment. And like what Mr. Amis said, the challenges is not only about the spectrum, infrastructure, devices, but also the services, the impact and the security. Thank you very much. Okay, all the participants, ladies and gentlemen, in 15 minutes ahead, we will have a discussion session, and please be prepared. For all the participants are allowed to raise question. Please type your question to the speakers in Q&A box with the format, name, institution, and to whom panelists this question be addressed, and your question. Okay, to honorable participant, now time for discussion portion. And I will choose the relate question and will be answered by the appoint speaker.
see there are two questions.
Yeah.
One is, uh, can I go ahead and read it? Or?
Yes, Mr. Amir.
Okay. So the first is from Rudy Purwanto from, I think, Excel. Can you explain related with spectrum flexibility, including the spectrum sharing for 5G development in commercial countries? Uh, how effective and how much is the role of government in an already commercial country so that 5G development can run faster? Uh, I think spectrum sharing is something that is very important in scenarios where spectrum is really fragmented. If there is a fragmentation and there is cases where the spectrum allocations that are currently have been done or being spectrum is being used for other purposes, there the spectrum sharing could help in having a spectrum that is more aligned, and you can use it more readily for higher throughputs rather than having something that is more fragmented. Um, and also, spectrum sharing helps in cases where the spectrum is limited. It depends on what kind of information and what kind of um, rollout categories you are going to do. It depends on the business case. If you are going for, let's say, EMBB, then uh, the best cases that are currently arriving right now are the usages for fixed wireless access right now in the beginning. So here it could be done using the millimeter wave as well. But if you go for the lower bands, then the spectrum sharing is really important because the amount of spectrum that is available in the lower band is always very low. So this is something that could be put allowed. They could be allowed in the by the government uh, based on some kind of like a control mechanisms, uh, so that there is a fair transaction whenever the spectrum sharing is allowed. In addition, some of the bands of IMT, for example, they are being used for applications other than uh, commercial IMT. For example, some of the bands are used by radars, ground radars. So here, the government could have some kind of regulations on where the spectrum resharing could be done, geographical separations, and others that could be done. So the sharing within the same applications and sharing across different services, uh, there is a, a role of government that could be achieved. Then I think there is a second question. 5G backbone be physically and virtually separate from 4G backbone? Um, I don't think so, because it depends if the what kind of fiber that the backbone is available. If there is some kind of like backbone that has the capacity to provide the services for 5G and cater for the needs of high speeds of 5G, then it's useful to see where the 5G backbone could come. Uh, then there is a question: will the 5G? I think there is the same question that I'm.
Yeah. Mr. Amir, there is one more question from Kevin GSMA about which countries have used HAPS for backhaul for 5G, and what is the end user result in terms of speeds and latency?
No, for the HAPS, currently what I know is there are some trials going on. Uh, I don't know about the 5G, but HTS like the O3B have been used in Pacific for the 4G backhauls. Um, some of the technologies that are coming up, they are a little different from the regular O3B that was there. For example, the usage of HTS high throughput satellites in the in the lower Earth orbit, or even lower than Leo in the stratosphere. Like, for example, the one that is being proposed by SoftBank in Japan, that is lower in stratosphere. Um, the results are not yet out because this technology is still in development, and commercials are not yet available. But what I know for the 4G backhaul that was done through these high throughput satellites like the O3B, there were some challenges, but these challenges were, for example, for uh, the technology of the what O3B was using. They when they were having some syncing issues for the HAPS, but it depends on how the rollout would, because the new HIBs or the new HTS satellites that are coming up, they have a very different way of coverage rather than what the O3B was using.
Okay, thank you. For all the participants, we still in the Q&A session. Please type your question to the Q&A box. We still have time for a discussion session. And don't forget that our program, you can check it on the YouTube channel of Kemkominfo TV. And then we have polling for the 5G uh, later in the break time. And I would like to invite honorable participant. You can ask the question in the Q&A box. Okay, the
Um,
next question. Yeah, you
so
can read that.
there is wireless backhaul is reliable enough for 5G. If you see the specification of IMT, IMT covers both the IMT terrestrial and IMT satellite based. So while the 5G terrestrial is developing, and new technologies are coming, same is the case for IMT satellite based. Uh, it depends on the usage of the wireless backhaul. For example, it used to be that the Ka band or the higher bands were not suitable for satellite communication, even in the GSO. But the results that we are seeing, for example, for Pacific satellite that is coming, also Indonesia, the even in high cover, they are able to deliver good results, acceptable results. But there's still need for improvement, and we hope that for HTS based and the ones that are near enough, the wireless backhaul would be reliable 5G for some use cases. And now, when we use the reliable backhaul for, let's say, using the satellite, there's going to be inherent latency, and so it might not be usable for ultra uh, uh, reliable low latency communications, but for high throughput and for EMBB or the IoT based massive machine type, it could be used in that sense. But for URLLC, I think the fiber would be the best approach as for now. But if you go for point to multi-point links, um, the wireless backhaul throughput only be done in a very high bands. The links could be smaller. For example, there have also already been some links in 70 gigahertz for point to multi-point link that cover around 1 kilometer. So this could be an approach that could be taken, especially for cities, because the beam would be very narrow. So that could be also something to think about. Now there is initial 5G business and services. This is a very interesting question from Roland Fabrian. Uh, this totally depends on how this uh, the business case for each country, it becomes very, very different. Indonesia is a very big country, and it is very difficult to ascertain what business case would be suitable for all the country. What I would say over here, we worked with Brunei in 2017, and what they have done, I think this is something that this approach could be studied by maybe NCI and other stakeholders in Indonesia. They have prepared a committee, a high-level committee chaired by the Minister of ICT himself and the regulator, and also all the stakeholders, including academia and others. Their business case, they thought, was transportation for rolling out 5G. So, but in Indonesia, I think it would be much more than only transportation. It could be many others. So, in general terms, what they thought that their case for business for rolling out 5G is uh, smart cities. But as I mentioned earlier in my presentation, for example, like Korea, the most use is coming from games. So it's very difficult to ascertain different and what I would suggest that there should be a national level study to see where uh, what could be the best scenarios where the business case lies, so that you first tap into these niche markets at the start when you roll out 5G services. Then there is a question from Adnan. How will 5G latency be lower if the processing is being done in the cloud? It depends on if the processing is being done in the cloud or at the physical processing at much more near the systems in some of the smart devices or smart routers that are coming up. It would not totally be in the cloud, and as I mentioned, the latency doesn't necessarily has to be 1 millisecond for all the usage cases. It's only for the ultra reliable low latency communications that requires, like for example, remote surgeries or autonomous driving, where the latency could be used. For other applications like MMTC, the latency might not be that an issue, and EMBB latency, a higher tolerance is there. Now, for how to lower down the URLC, if you understand the network structure of the 5G, you can do network categorization, and depending upon the usage requirements, you can assign resources dynamically. Using the dynamic resource allocations, I think the latency could be done, and this is what is evaluated. So all the technologies that have been evaluated by ITU, they like the three mentioned, 3GPP, RIT, SRIT, and 5GI, all they adhere to this criteria.
One more question from the last question from Mr. Rudy Purwanto.
Okay. Okay, from Rudy, yes, the biggest challenge for me um is to understand what are the requirements. First, what is going to be the your niche market of the country where the business would lie. So you can, if we as a country and Indonesia could take it, understand it right, then I think the other this 5G is going to be a good success coming. The spectrum, I think, could be made available. I look forward to the roadmap. I think we have a lot of understanding in the ministry of what are the requirements, and they would make available the spectrum. But not only this, but harmonized spectrum has to be used. We have seen many MNOs that are they are very much focused on or two particular bands, but now there are lot many bands that are available. As I think in the speech by the minister as well, he has enumerated a lot of bands that are not available. So it might be useful not to have your business case around any particular band, but business case around the services that could be offered and what kind of usage scenario that you see could be happening. And the decision is very key, especially in the post-COVID scenario where the capex availability is low and the 5G deployment is going to have a requirement much higher than 4G ones, because there is in the cities there is going to be pico cells and requirements of backhauls. So this, I think, is the biggest challenge. What I see is to evaluate where is your niche market for the country for the 5G development.
Yeah, Mr. Amir, one more question is from YouTube. From Galih Ari Prawira, how to reach a rural area with a 5G?
Rural areas, I think it's a good question in a sense that for rural areas the coverage bands could be used. I think even 2.1, 2.3, 2.6, these are the bands they could be used. Also for 3.5, 6 bands, these could be used. But for rural areas, again, what we see is one of the major application that is gaining ground in many of the developing countries is fixed wireless access. Not only specific to the urban areas, but especially rural areas, because they don't have anything to connect the internet or reliable or high speed internet. So there exists an opportunity of using this new technology that is available and coverage bands to make the impact that is needed. And one other is maybe specifically in the agriculture cases, as in case of China. As I mentioned, that they are massively using drones on 5G networks for agriculture. So when you are using drones, again, this comes under NMTC, not EMBB or URLLC. So the requirements of throughput and latency might be lower. But we use the same 5G systems to address these kind of the massive rollout of MMTC or machine type communications in the agriculture areas or the rural areas.
Okay, Mr. Amir, thank you very much for the answer. It gave insight for us, and also thank you for the participant that still enthusiast until the last session. And I would like to ask Mr. Denny or Pak Dirjen. Can the participant ask the question, if you don't mind?
Please.
Yeah, thank you very much, Mr. Denny. The question is about when is the 5G the proper time for 5G to release in Indonesia or to launch in Indonesia?
Sorry. Yeah, I think the timeline would be presented by the Director General. But in brief, that we would like to have 5G as soon as possible, not in the of course, it's not in big scale, but at least a showcase for and starting next year, and started from 2.3 gigahertz that we now being have the selection process. What we are doing now, and then the operator would also can have their own spectrum that actually with the neutral technology policy that they can also provide the 5G. But things that's the challenge is the ecosystem of the handset. I hope that will be available soon. And then there's also the ecosystem and the fiberization. I think this is the challenge. But hopefully that we can start next year for several showcase and then continue later on.
Yeah, we do hope that will reach the target. And the usage of 5G is for whom? Especially for the...
Yeah. Okay. I think the 5G, as the Mr. Amir has mentioned, 5G for in first maybe for some industry application, maybe some several use, but I think well when I think the ecosystem and the use case will start will be at Mr. Amir has mentioned that it could be some application for fixed broadband, it could be for IoT, and then we'll study by learning by doing. Once we never start, then we never have experience, right? So I think there will be a lot of application, but start from specific application.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Dennis Tiawan from MCI Indonesia. And once again, thank you very much, Mr. Amir. And also honorable guests, all the participants, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for your participation. That was all for the first session Q&A on our conference, and it's now for breaking time. We have 15 minutes for the break time, and of course we will be back on the second session about 5G roadmap. And there are polling for the participant to be filled out on this break time. Yeah, I would like to ask the participant to fill out the polling. It's about the 5G implementation, and the result, we're gonna know the result later in the end of this conference. Okay, please take your time during the break time to fill out the polling. And later, after 15 minutes, we will be back here and we join to the second session. The topic is about the 5G in Indonesia, the 5G roadmap. Okay, once again, to all honorable participants, please fill out the polling. Thank you. Yeah, ladies and gentlemen, while you filling out the polling, I would like to ask to all the participants, we will be back here 10:15. Please don't be late. We are going to rejoin here for the next session, which is about the 5G roadmap. We'll be back on 10:15. Okay, now it's 10:15. Ladies and gentlemen, all distinguished guests, we are back here in the Zoom meeting and we will continue for our next session, which is about the 5G roadmap. But I would like to, before we proceed to the main session, I would like to inform to all of you about the material of the panelists or the presentation file. We will share on the link and also the certificate after you fill the ticket on the link. We will share it later at the end of this conference. We are going to have four guest speaker on this session, and the first speaker that will expose about the Indonesia 5G initial roadmap will be presented by Dr. Ismail, Director General of Resource Management and Equipment of Post and Informatics. Yeah, as the Director General of Resource Management and Standardization of Post and ICT, Ministry of Communication and Informatics, the Republic of Indonesia. Dr. Ismail leads this Directorate General with almost more than 100 civil servants throughout Indonesia. And Dr. Ismail has been joined or take part with the government of the Republic of Indonesia for 25 years and has been grateful every second of his service to the country. He is focusing on how government could be a booster for ecosystem, particularly being a facilitator. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Dr. Ismail, the Director General of Resource Management and Equipment of Post and Informatics.
Thank you. Can you hear me? Halo?
Yeah,
Sudah
you
dengar?
can. Yeah, we can hear you.
Thank you. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam.
Selamat siang, gentlemen, everybody. I'm very happy to here to present the Indonesian 5G initial roadmap in this conference, very important conference. There are some issues I need to be explored here, but as I list the participants here is mostly Indonesian, and I have prepared my slide in English, but I would like to apologize, speak in Bahasa, because I need to explore it very deep for all, and I will some of this I will be translated in English in importance. Bapak Ibu sekalian, saya coba start dengan situasi kondisi di Indonesia sekarang. Kita ketahui tidak ada keraguan lah bahwa negara kita adalah negara besar, ya. Negara yang luar biasa, memiliki populasi yang luas dan internet users yang demikian banyaknya. Jadi kalau kita bicara potensi, tidak ada keraguan. Operator-operator memahami benar bahwa Indonesia memang adalah negara yang sangat menjanjikan, very promising itu in Indonesian economy and Indonesian population. So our digital landscape is very exciting. Lanjut. Indonesia also has a very much demanding, ya, especially in apa namanya di dalam internet keseharian. demand-nya ini luar biasa gitu. Jadi berapapun yang kita siapkan, teman-teman menyiapkan kebutuhan speed data dan itu akan bandwidth ini lompat terus gitu. Jadi tidak linear tapi eksponensial pertumbuhannya. Ini kondisinya dan Indonesia memang sangat aktif di dalam sosial media gitu. Sehingga kita adalah salah satu negara yang setiap sosial media yang booming di dunia itu kawah candra di mukanya itu Indonesia gitu ya. Selain Cina, Amerika dan India gitu. Jadi kita adalah negara yang luar biasa, memiliki potensi yang sangat besar di dalam konektivitas tentunya gitu, karena implementasinya yang begitu besar dimanfaatkan oleh banyak anak-anak muda Indonesia yang sedang berkembang sekarang. Nah, kita memerlukan pertanyaannya mengapa kita perlu roadmap di dalam 5G ini gitu. Karena seperti yang sudah dijelaskan lanjut Mas, dalam penjelasan berikutnya ini saya ingin menjelaskan bahwa kita ada perintah presiden yang mempercepat proses agenda transformasi digital ini. Karena ini adalah konteks Indonesia untuk survive dalam menghadapi kondisi sekarang. Maka pindah ke ruang digital ada sebuah keharusan dan percepat akselerasi ketersediaan infrastruktur yang berkualitas di mana-mana, di seluruh pelosok tanah air. Jadi ada 5 instruksi Bapak Presiden yang merupakan perintah langsung agar terjadi percepatan di dalam transformasi digital ini. Dan ini diterjemahkan oleh Kementerian Kominfo juga, salah satunya adalah dalam rangka menyambut teknologi baru atau adopsi 5G ini. Karena kita yakin 5G adalah salah satu pilar yang sangat penting untuk menuntaskan proses transformasi digital Indonesia ini. Karena di dalamnya ada pemanfaatan data dan seterusnya yang memang sangat membutuhkan konektivitas dengan kualitas yang istimewa yang bisa dihadirkan dengan 5G. Lanjut. Pertanyaan berikutnya, buat apa kita punya roadmap? Punya planning terhadap 5G services. Karena dengan memiliki roadmap ini, kita bisa mengharapkan service 5G ini bisa affordable. Karena apa? Karena sudah direncanakan dengan baik. Kalau tidak punya roadmap, tidak punya kejelasan, maka teman-teman players atau stakeholders yang terlibat, baik di situ operators, makers, creation, content creator dan sebagainya nggak punya pegangan. Kapan pertanyaannya? Apa yang harus saya lakukan sekarang? Kapan dimulai dan seterusnya? Ini pertanyaan-pertanyaan yang terus-menerus menjadi seperti chicken and egg gitu. Ketika kita tidak punya roadmap. Tapi ketika pemerintah sudah menerbitkan roadmap, mudah-mudahan ini bisa menjadi penjuru sehingga public investment lebih efektif, juga mendorong private sector untuk investasi lebih berani lagi karena sudah punya keyakinan dan punya timetable yang jelas. Kemudian bisa membuat partnership dan accountability yang lebih baik ketika roadmap ini sudah tersedia. Gitu. Jadi dengan tersedia secara holistik 5G roadmap ini, dia akan mengenerate excellent structure digital transformation. Lanjut. 5G juga sebenarnya sebelum perintah transformasi digital dikeluarkan oleh Bapak Presiden sudah kita masukkan di dalam Renstra bahwa 5G development di Indonesia itu adalah salah satu prioritas untuk menyelesaikan beberapa agenda prioritas Presiden, termasuk juga untuk menyelesaikan Indonesia 4.0 yang sudah harus dipercepat sehingga memberikan ruang kita untuk meningkatkan ekspor dan menggunakan produksi lokal. Kemudian mendorong 5 wisata turis daerah destinasi wisata prioritas dan juga rencana ibu kota baru. Ini semua akan disupport oleh 5G. Nah, Bapak Ibu sekalian, ini adalah beberapa timetable yang sudah kita kompilasi. Ini pada tahun 2015, tahun 2016 kita mengikuti dengan cermat perkembangan di ITU yang merilis rekomendasi IMT 2020 versi efisien. Kemudian all CDMA network migrated into 4G LTE, dan first TDD network of mobile broadband in 2,3 GHz. Ini adalah histori kita di tahun 2015-2016. Kemudian tahun 2017 kita start melakukan berbagai macam trial untuk 5G. Ini dilakukan hampir semua operator mobile kita melakukan uji coba tahun 2017. Tahun 2018 kita melakukan update untuk mengidentifikasi IMT band di dalam tabel alokasi frekuensi kita. Jadi sudah ada IMT band yang sudah jelas di dalam tabel alokasi frekuensi. Kemudian kita juga mendorong digital talent scholarship pada tahun 2018 dan mulai merefarming 2,1 giga di tahun 2018 juga. Tahun 2019 kita melakukan di WRC 19 kita lakukan footnote untuk ikut dalam join 3.300 dan 3.600 3,3 sampai 3,6 giga. Kemudian melakukan refarming di 900 mega, band 900 mega. Dan tahun 2020 kita melakukan pembentukan 5G Task Force, dan Indonesia alhamdulillah sudah menerbitkan Undang-Undang Cipta Kerja yang secara tegas menyandikan bahwa akan dilakukan analog switch off untuk band 700 mega yang mendapat digital dividend pada akhir tahun 2022. Nah, ini kita lakukan, dan satu milestone juga yang penting adalah 3,5 giga sudah dimulai trial di Bandung bersamaan dengan pendirian TIP Lab untuk Open Run yang kami anggap salah satu teknologi yang sangat penting yang bisa membantu percepatan pembangunan infrastruktur 5G di Indonesia, karena bisa menjanjikan promising cutting cost yang luar biasa dalam implementasi Open Run teknologi ini. Lanjut. Inilah kira-kira bentuk dari Indonesia 5G Task Force yang sudah kita bentuk dengan melibatkan banyak pihak dan berbagai streamlining, baik di streamlining spectrum plan, business model, infrastructure, device and ecosystem, dan regulasi. Jadi ada 5 streamline yang secara paralel sekarang dilakukan kajian untuk membangun roadmap Indonesia ini. Webinar ini adalah webinar yang menurut saya sangat penting untuk mengisi diskusi kita agar kita bisa melakukan finalize pada comprehensive policy recommendation yang selesai di akhir tahun 2021. Kita akan secara berkelanjutan membahas tentang spektrum, tentang bisnis model, infrastruktur, device, ekosistem, dan regulasi. Lanjut. Baik, kita mulai dari demand spektrum ya, bahwa sebagaimana kita ketahui bahwa ada beberapa tipe dari kebutuhan spektrum frekuensi kita. Bahwa spektrum itu demand kita itu ada yang price sensitive users, itu di skenario 1, yaitu adalah daerah-daerah yang di daerah rural yang dimanfaatkan untuk coverage band. Kemudian di balance between price dan experience atau kualitas, dan skenario 3 adalah ini adalah experience kita yang di band high frequency band. yang memang benar-benar membutuhkan kualitas tinggi. Nah, tentu di setiap skenario ini lower band, kemudian middle band dan spektrum super data layer band ini diperlukan policy yang berbeda-beda. Tapi policy ini harus dilakukan secara simultan agar idealnya operator yang akan menggelar network dan layanan broadband atau 5G di Indonesia ini memiliki ruang yang cukup untuk melakukan inovasi dan skenario-skenario dalam membangun infrastrukturnya. Jadi harus tersedia, setiap operator 5G di Indonesia itu harus memiliki kelengkapan spektrum frekuensi untuk kebutuhan kapasitas, untuk kebutuhan coverage, untuk kebutuhan kapasitas, dan untuk kebutuhan very sensitive data di band tinggi itu. Lanjut. Ini adalah kondisi kita sekarang. Kita baru berhasil menyediakan 1.882 sampai saat ini, dan target kita pada akhir tahun 2024 itu tersedia 2047 MHz frekuensi yang akan digunakan untuk melayani berbagai macam layanan yang dibutuhkan. Jadi setidaknya kita masih kekurangan 1.310 MHz sejak tahun 2019 kemarin, kita tuntaskan perlahan-lahan sampai dengan nanti akhir tahun 2024. Ini kebutuhan kita, ada masalah sendiri masing-masing di band frekuensi, baik itu di lower band, middle band, dan di super data layer band. Band 700 kita sudah memiliki solusi karena sudah keluar Omnibus Law yang menetapkan tentang analog switch off. Di band 2,6 kita ada masalah karena masih dimanfaatkan untuk operator service satelit. Kemudian di band 3,5 kita juga masih mengimplementasikan untuk extended C-band. Lanjut. Nah, mungkin ini slide yang paling penting yang ingin saya sampaikan kepada Bapak Ibu sekalian tentang initial konsep yang kita bayangkan untuk spektrum frekuensi di Indonesia, dan tentu saja ini merupakan live dokumen yang masih kita diskusikan dan kita kaji untuk menerima masukan, dan sangat mungkin skenario ini akan dilakukan perubahan dan updating sesuai dengan informasi dan masukan yang kita terima. Pertama, kita membayangkan di band 700 ini bisa segera kita rilis walaupun analog switch off belum berakhir. Ini opsi 1 ya. Artinya kita bisa melakukan percepatan pemanfaatan band 700 secara bertahap. Itu di kuartal ketiga tahun 2021. Ini rencana kami. Jadi sembari dengan analog switch off berjalan, daerah-daerah yang sudah bisa kita rilis untuk band 700 bisa kita rilis secara perlahan-lahan. Sehingga teman-teman sudah memiliki kesempatan bagi para operator yang mempersiapkan jaringannya untuk mensupport 5G, itu sudah bisa membangun coverage band-nya. Karena coverage band ini adalah band yang paling penting untuk mengcover di tahap awal. Ketika kebutuhan 5G masih di awal dan belum dibutuhkan begitu masif data yang akan dilalukan, maka dengan memanfaatkan band 700 ini terjadi penghematan pembangunan infrastruktur. Kemudian di band 2,6 kami memang secara aturan baru akan bisa melepasnya pada awal tahun 2025 karena dia akan berakhir akhir tahun 2024. Tapi ini tidak menutup kemungkinan apabila kita berhasil melakukan diskusi dengan operator existing untuk melakukan early termination. Ini kami sedang upayakan diskusi ini. Ini band 2,6. Sedangkan band 3,5 ini secara availability itu 2023 sebenarnya sudah siap. Namun demikian kami juga memiliki opsi untuk percepatan. Misalnya pada tahun 2021 atau 2022 sudah mulai dilakukan lisensi pemanfaatan 3,5 untuk co-channel atau dilakukan secara sharing antara pemanfaatan bersama antara 5G dengan ekstensi satelit. Juga opsi kedua, kalau misalnya bisa dilakukan license yang migrasi BWA service di 3,3 dan 3,5 ini secara serentak, maka kita bisa merilis nationwide-nya gitu. Itu untuk band 3,3. Tapi untuk band 3,5 ini subject to discuss dengan teman-teman ekstensi satelit, dan ini sangat mungkin untuk kita lakukan percepatan apabila bisa diselesaikan dua isu, yaitu isu technical issue, melakukan implementasi co-channel secara beriringan antara ekstensi dengan 5G, juga menuntaskan yang kedua, isu kedua dari sisi aspek bisnisnya. Dan ini kandidat kita yang sangat berpotensial untuk di middle band adalah di band 3,5 ini. Kemudian di band 26 dan 2028 kita melihat situasi kebutuhannya, karena ini membutuhkan investasi yang luar biasa besarnya, mengingat kebutuhan kerapatan BTS yang diperlukan untuk membangun di band 26 dan 28. Tapi secara prinsip band ini sebenarnya band yang terbuka, jadi sangat siap untuk dilakukan kapan saja, tergantung demand dan kebutuhan teman-teman operators. Kita merencanakan di 2022 atau 2023, tapi subject to discuss ya teman-teman operator tentang kebutuhan di band super data layer ini. Lanjut, saya akan sedikit update tentang digitalisasi analog switch off atau TV services di band 700. Sebagaimana kita ketahui bahwa secara parlemen sudah memutuskan bahwa broadcasting law akan diselesaikan di 2021, dan omnibus law sudah menetapkan dalam 2 tahun, berarti akhir tahun 2 November 2022 itu sudah dilakukan analog switch off. Di implementasi simulcast sebenarnya sudah berjalan sekarang. Jadi teman-teman operator broadcasting operator sudah melakukan siaran digital bersamaan dengan siaran analognya di hampir 7 provinsi, dan akan terus berkembang sampai dengan 244 digital TV transmitter yang ready diimplementasikan oleh TVRI di seluruh Indonesia. Jadi TVRI ini akan sangat siap untuk menggendong teman-teman di daerah untuk mengimplementasikan TV digital. Lanjut, ini adalah jajaran showcase yang sudah dilakukan sejak tahun 2017, 2018, dan 2019. Kita tentu saja tidak ingin menjadi negara showcase, negara yang hanya cuma uji coba dan trial saja. Kami berharap teman-teman telco operators bisa segera memanfaatkan kelonggaran dari Omnibus Law atau Undang-Undang Cipta Kerja yang sudah ditandatangani untuk bisa secepatnya merealisasikan 5G ini dengan memanfaatkan existing frekuensi yang ada. Tambahan frekuensi akan sangat dimungkinkan ketika teman-teman telco operator sudah siap menyelesaikan beberapa persyaratan di belakang ini yang akan saya uraikan nanti di slide berikutnya. Lanjut, ini hasil trial yang barusan selesai dilakukan di Bandung kemarin. Alhamdulillah berhasil baik gitu, antara implementasi satelit dengan terestrial atau 5G dilakukan di band 3,5. Kita sudah mengetahui berapa guardband yang kira-kira dibutuhkan di sana, additional filter yang dibutuhkan seperti apa, jarak minimum antara satelit dengan layanan mobilenya berapa. Ini sudah kita identifikasi secara teknis. Tinggal nanti kita rilis, kita pertajam dengan pemanfaatan use case seperti apa yang akan bisa bermanfaat untuk dilakukan secara co-channel seperti ini. Dan ini sangat menjanjikan hasil dari field trial yang sudah dilakukan di Bandung, di Telkom University dan ITB dalam rangka melakukan uji coba di band 3,5. Lanjut. Ini adalah beberapa prasyarat Bapak Ibu sekalian. Jadi spektrum ini bukan satu-satunya masalah di dalam implementasi 5G. Saya berkali-kali menyampaikan bahwa isu spektrum ini bukan satu-satunya gitu. Banyak hal sebenarnya yang harusnya sedang dilakukan oleh teman-teman operator dan stakeholders lainnya dalam rangka mempersiapkan 5G. Karena apabila kami juga merilis spektrum pada saat yang tidak tepat atau lebih awal, maka teman-teman telco operator akan menanggung akibat membayar spektrum fee yang mahal ketika mereka belum siap. Inilah yang kita sebut dengan roadmap. Ketika kita memadukan antara kebijakan pemerintah dengan kesiapan teman-teman telco operator sendiri. Di sini perlu diskusi dan perlu komunikasi agar rilis spektrum itu dilakukan in time pada saat yang benar-benar dibutuhkan. Kalau kita lakukan di awal, ini akan sangat memberatkan teman-teman telco operators karena mereka mau tidak mau harus lelang dan membayar spektrum fee, sementara ada beberapa hal yang harus diselesaikan di dalam konteks menyiapkan 5G infrastructure. Yang pertama adalah fiberisasi. Jadi kami sangat berharap teman-teman telco operators itu melakukan fiberisasi secepat-cepatnya ketika ingin berniat untuk menjadi 5G operators. Karena percuma kita punya spektrum frekuensi di last mile, tapi banyak bottlenecking di belakang. Hubungan antara BTS dan core network tidak dilengkapi dengan optical fibers. So that's why I think to implement 5G, there is not frequency issues only, but there are some activities need to be prior to or before implementation of 5G need to be handled as soon as possible. First by telco operators, they have to prepare fiberization. They need to prepare the infrastructure and to develop their capabilities in human research, digital talent, and very important one also how to utilize data information above of 5G infrastructure. How they implement the infrastructure 5G not only become as a dumb pipe, but how they deliver the service with the solution. Coming with to market, enter market with solution. Not retail only, but for the big customers or corporate users. They have to come with the solution and the use case. How to monetization of the 5G infrastructure is being built before the infrastructure is developed. Ini adalah beberapa infrastruktur atau kebutuhan-kebutuhan dasar yang harus diselesaikan sebelum kita rilis spektrum frekuensi. Lanjut. Ini ending goal dari 5G infrastruktur itu adalah pemanfaatannya. Jadi kita tidak berharap infrastruktur only for infrastructure, but how infrastructure solve the problem. One is very important. The important things is micro, small, and medium enterprise go digital. How 5G can support small, medium enterprises to use and to utilize the 5G infrastructure untuk melakukan berbagai macam kegiatan ekonomi, aktivitas ekonomi di atas dari infrastruktur yang dibangun. Karena ending goal-nya kita membangun nation. We build 5G not build or only for short term and for just operator by operators, but how to build our nation. And one of very important is go digital of medium, small enterprises. My last slide is, this is the technology that already being implemented in some countries. We call is namely is Open RAN. Is very promising technology to overcome the solution Indonesian situation. Bapak Ibu sekalian, kita ketahui bahwa Indonesia ini agak unik, negara yang berbeda dengan negara-negara lain. Kita negara yang archipelagic, yang sangat luas, dan penduduk banyak yang scattered gitu. Sehingga membangun infrastruktur di Indonesia itu mungkin membutuhkan investasi yang jauh lebih besar dari negara-negara yang model daratan. Oleh karena itu dibutuhkan solusi teknologi yang bisa cutting cost, baik itu investment cost maupun operating cost-nya. Nah, Open RAN ini menjanjikan hal tersebut. Jadi karena dia disupport oleh GSMA, berarti support dengan comply dengan 3GPP standar, maka kami harapkan teman-teman telco operators bisa memanfaatkan Open RAN ini menjadi solusi untuk mempercepat pembangunan infrastructure, starting 4G but ready for 5G. Saya kira demikian Bapak Ibu sekalian yang saya bisa sampaikan pada kesempatan hari ini. Tentu your inputs, guidance, and recommendation is very important for us to develop our 5G roadmap. Mohon maaf apabila ada kekurangan. Bila taufiq wal hidayah. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Ya, Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Terima kasih kepada Dirjen SDPPI, Bapak Dr. Ismail. Tadi menarik ya Pak yang Bapak sampaikan bahwa memang spektrum bukan satu-satunya masalah dalam mengimplementasikan. Spectrum is not only the thing that become the problem, but also the infrastructure, devices, services, security, human resources, dan juga tadi sebagaimana yang disampaikan oleh Pak Dirjen bahwa roadmap ini memang sangat diperlukan terkait bagaimana planning mengenai 5G ini, dan sifatnya ini masih initial concept. Sehingga sangat terbuka masukan input dari seluruh stakeholders, dan semoga bisa mencapai target setidaknya nanti di tahun 2024. Sekali lagi terima kasih Pak Dirjen. Ladies and gentlemen, all distinguished participants, all the panelists, we are going to the next expose, which is about the global overview on 5G development. Indonesia digital transformation and 5G future. I would like to invite Mr. Julian Gorman, Head of Asia Pacific for the GSMA, who has many experiences, such as leading a highly experienced cross-functional team to advance the impact, growth, and sustainability of digital economies. Mr. Julian Gorman, also a global telecommunication executive with over 20 years of commercial and marketing experiences. Mr. Julian Gorman also an advisor to management executive team and board. He has been recognized for his leadership in digital innovation. Okay, Mr. Julian Gorman, time is yours.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. I'd like to thanks for the opportunity to speak here. So, His Excellency Johnny G. Plate, the Minister, my good friend Dr. Ismail, Director General from Ministry, distinguished speakers, representatives of the mobile operators and guests. I mean, it's an honour for the GSMA to be able to address this forum on behalf on today. It's important for me not only because I live in Indonesia and take a very personal interest in the advancement of the digital economy, but because today marks a very important milestone in Indonesia's journey to becoming a 5G nation. So I applaud the instruction from the President to accelerate the transformation of the nation to an inclusive digital economy. And I applaud the Ministry for organising this event and starting the dialogue and the engagement of the stakeholders. But perhaps most encouraging element of today's event is the nature of the agenda and the discussion to invite stakeholders and interested parties from across government, industry and the ecosystem to join the journey to bring the largest 5G nation in the region. There's still many unknowns and there's plans to be made until we actually get to the first launches. But by no means that launch is actually the end of the journey. We will need to make that journey together. And Dr. Ismail just then invited people to be part of that journey and to participate in the discussion. And from a GSMA point of view, we certainly intend to be part of that discussion. So there is no doubt that 5G is a transformative technology for enterprise, consumers and government and a nation itself. The technology is real, it's available. The first networks are more than 18 months old now, but we need to recognise that 5G alone will not create the digital vision and will not create digital transformation. So unlike the generations before where mobile operators, handset OEMs and the government issuing spectrum and other stakeholders largely acted in isolation and at their own discretion, to achieve 5G's potential, we need to nurture the ecosystem. And I know that's been mentioned by the Minister and Dr. Ismail this morning and Dr. Syed there. It's important that we collaborate and consult between industry and government and at all times keep that North Star, that vision of a digital Indonesia, the digital champion of the region really, as the guiding direction where we're going. So next slide. So for those who are not quite sure, just quickly, GSMA is represents the interests of mobile network operators worldwide, more than 1,000 members, including over 350 companies in the broader mobile communications ecosystem. Many of you probably know us for our Mobile World Congress event in Barcelona and other conferences, but at our core, we are advocates for the sustainable growth of the mobile industry as the foundation for an inclusive digital economy. And that's certainly the way we approach in Indonesia. Next slide. So from a global point of view, where are we? Now more than 100 networks across 45 countries and around 80 impending launches, which when delivered will mean that we have 5G networks in nearly 80 countries. An important observation, if you look at the map there, is that nearly all the operational 5G networks are in advanced mobile markets. What do I mean by advanced? It means high user penetration, high adoption of mobile broadband amongst those users. They tend to have high ARPU at multiples of maybe 10 or even 20 times out of Indonesia. But I'll come to why that's important soon. But we are getting to the end of those advanced markets. 5G is just about in every advanced market so far. So we are now moving into a new phase. So next slide. So let's look at some of the key measures of the global mobile economy, which comes from our annual mobile economy report. Globally, unique users are rising to around 5.8 billion in 2025, with a penetration of 70% base. Now, remember, I'm asking you to remember some of these numbers because I'm going to come back to them in later slides, because I'm going to contrast them with 5G markets. So that first pioneer group of operators, those first 45 countries or so, and what we're now moving into now. Other important measures to note there on the slide is it's around 80% smartphone penetration in 2025 and 61% mobile broadband penetration as an average. Of course, we've all heard how expensive 5G will be to build, and you can see that globally the industry is expecting to spend over 1.1 trillion US dollars by 2025. So say from the start of this year or end of 2019 through to 2025, and about 80% of that is going to be spent on 5G. So next slide. So if we break that down a little further and compare some of the different regions in the world on those data points, I should point out here that when it comes to the mobile economy, APAC is the largest region in the world for GSMA, but it's also important to recognise that APAC is the most diverse region. What I mean by that is all the other regions have a relative consistency or uniformity to the mobile economy. So if you see there, Europe, you have the EU, China, and our other regions all have a degree of consistency. So CIS, is the sort of former Russian states. And so there's a uniformity, a relative uniformity in those key market measures. But in APAC, we have examples of every market maturity or complexity that you'll find across the world. We have small island nations, and we have one of the largest populations in the world with India. We have Korea, the first country to launch 5G with an aligned and coordinated launch. And now they're even approaching 10 million 5G customers with 90+% population coverage of 5G. And then there's those at the other end of the scale who are still struggling to release spectrum for 4G and have different degrees of penetration. So just for a quick comparison, we can see that APAC is lagging in penetration and smartphone adoption compared to some of those other regions with a greater portion of advanced markets. But obviously, this does vary significantly across Asia Pacific. So again, just keep these numbers in mind. So next slide. So if we take a deeper dive on Asia Pacific for user penetration, here we can see that Southeast Asia is ahead of South Asia, but still lagging significantly from the more advanced market subregions like Northeast Asia. And importantly, is Southeast Asia is actually reflective of the average. And if you see, if you remember the previous slide, at a global level, APAC is around the average when it comes to penetration, but obviously varying significantly across those countries. Next slide. So the first 5G networks are now around 18 to 20 months old. 4G became the dominant world technology around the same time as 5G networks were being launched. And by 2025, 4G is still estimated to be around 2/3 of the users in the world, but in decline. And 5G is approaching 23% of all connections and rising. And 2 and 3G have almost faded away. Why is this important? Well, it's important that we start turning off legacy networks to free up spectrum for reuse, but importantly also for the operators to reduce cost and complexity for mobile operators, because these are all different networks running on top of each other. Next slide. So in APAC, we have 9 markets with commercial 5G so far. Singapore's around the corner. The closest live network to Jakarta would be Bangkok or Manila, but as I say, Singapore is very close. So once virus travel restrictions are removed, we can start to expect to see, friends, family, or work colleagues who have experienced 5G and will be starting to refine or start to get expectations about 5G and when is Indonesia going to have it. Now, there are more than 12 additional markets that have in the region who have announced intent to launch 5G. And a consistent message in many of those markets is the linking of 5G with the national digital economic transformation, a bit like we've heard the story this morning, and following growth. I do welcome that the President acknowledged that the intent for 5G to add a new platform for innovation and national digital transformation, but it's not about waiting for 5G or thinking that 5G has magical powers that are going to transform the economy on its own. So I just want to pick up on the Minister's comment earlier about the need to create an advanced ecosystem for 5G. Building that ecosystem starts now, or in fact, that ecosystem needs to already be well on its way if we're going to meet the timetables that we are discussing for Indonesia. Next slide. But before I mentioned the penetration of around 23%, so across Asia Pacific, you can see there that the developed nations by 2025 will be well on their way past half penetration, 50% penetration, of 5G. But the rest of Asia Pacific, and those numbers can be a little bit sorted, are much lower, certainly in the first stages of 5G take-up. And breaking that down, why is that important? Is because we're talking about the scale of the ecosystem of which the mobile operators are working for and launching their networks. Obviously, they're starting to invest, and if you want to invite the ecosystem in, the size of the customer base, the interaction on 5G is important measures in driving that ecosystem. A big advantage for Indonesia is obviously China, which is the biggest 5G market in the world, and a lot of the innovation in 5G from Northeast Asia and China is very close. And so, and that's what actually globally, Asia Pacific is the center of the 5G world, really. So next slide. So just to mention that from a virus point of view, so the numbers I've shown you before were done in the early days of the virus. The virus, I think, for all of us has carried on a lot longer than we all hoped. It's still going on. And so we do estimate that there is going to be a slight impact on those numbers originally. And so there will be a slight lag, but it starts to catch up towards the back of 2025. And just for context, we say our estimate now is around 23% of the world's users on 5G by 2025. Only 3 years ago, 2 or 3 years ago, that estimate was only 15% for the same timing. So it's an indication that actually 5G take-up and adoption is actually going faster than we were even estimating a couple of years ago. Next slide. So let's get give you some insights on how GSMA works with the region when it comes to 5G, and bring you back to those numbers I was talking about before. So in Asia Pacific, GSMA looks at, we have pioneers, so those leading countries, of which are mostly launched now, who have launched the technology, but you'll see there's some market measures there around their penetration. You see under the technology mix, and we're giving 2 examples there, Australia and Korea. The markets had almost completely moved to 4G before they moved to 5G. And by 2025, you're looking at more than 50% 5G usage. Importantly, on the right there, you see this from a subscriber point of view. Even last year, subscriber penetration and usage, adoption of mobile internet was well over 80%. And smartphones are well up in 90%. So next slide. And so you can see those examples. So yes, and then we have pioneer nations, and those are the nations where 5G was the first to roll out, and they've been really solving and developing some of those pioneer issues. I mean, business cases, use cases, technology issues, and their learning and their solving of those pioneer issues will help the following countries move on. So the other group we deal with in a major group in Asia Pacific with GSMA is what we call the leading nations. So Indonesia, India, Pakistan, Bangladesh, 2 billion people or thereabouts, 4 countries, all have a vision that connects 5G and digital transformation of their nations, digital transformation of their economies. Now, again, if you look at those numbers there, you'll just see that subscriber penetration, adoption of the internet is significantly below those pioneer countries. And from a technology mix, 2G and 3G is still a large part of the customer base. Importantly, I mean, the upside is Indonesia, amongst those countries, Indonesia has the most favorable looking numbers. And what does that mean? Is, as I said before, it's about the scale of the ecosystem or the potential of the ecosystem, and an installed base that's maybe more ready to move on to 5G. So next slide. Next slide. Yeah, so just highlighting those numbers there. Now, from just referring to global or around the region, it's actually a very crowded digital nation landscape. And what I mean by that is I just said the leading nations, so India, Pakistan, Bangladesh, Indonesia, all have announced visions relating 5G and digital transformation. need to consider that in a 5G world, and actually the global digital transformation is actually these countries now have to compete for resources. And when I'm going to compete for resources, investment, innovation can be, there's limits, and they're competing to attract the best innovation and the most investment to help transform their economies. And so it's important that as Indonesia moves forward with this, our 5G roadmap, it's important that we're building the policy and regulatory framework that makes and provides a platform for Indonesia to be the leader and continue on its ambitions to be that regional champion. Next slide. Now, I'm not going to go through this slide in great detail, because I think just about everybody on this call has probably in the last couple of years seen something like this with a description of what are going to be the use cases of 5G. And this is like the generalized description. We're 18 months into networks in Korea and Japan. And so, I know there's media, and you might be asking yourself in the question, what is the use case? Where can I see an example? And the thing about these use cases and the features of 5G which give rise to these use cases is they are very advanced market or pioneer market use cases. And they are busy getting work on, and they're starting to grow and be adopted in those pioneer markets. But what I want to highlight is when it comes to each nation, and it's going to be especially relevant for leading nations who have a different type of rollout, is the country is different, the install base, the penetration of the base of 4G and mobile broadband give rise to different characteristics, which means that a country like Indonesia has to be making sure or considering what's right for its market, not just using what's been taken up in other markets. So next slide. But in saying that, and I just mentioned that use cases need to solve an Indonesian problem. And an Indonesian problem can only be solved with what it was the 5G network and the schedule we have for rolling out 5G. Nevertheless, I will say that two of the early, I think, use cases or that will apply to Indonesia and we're seeing around the region is, and as was mentioned before, is the adoption of consumer gaming and mobile broadband. I mean, consumers are always there, but gaming and esports is becoming, I think, a higher profile issue. And there's Southeast Asia and actually Asia generally is the center of the gaming and esports market. And from a network rollout point of view, and I know it was mentioned earlier as to what would be the original or the initial focus of 5G in Indonesia, and it was talking about corporate network areas to solve industrial applications, things like that, is we are seeing that even in advanced markets that pockets of networks are being deployed to address specific enterprise and industrial use cases. It does say private network there. I'm not suggesting that it's always private network, but the network is deployed in a smaller geographic area to solve an enterprise problem. Next slide. So, in a nutshell, what are the principles for a sustainable 5G future? And this is the short summarized version from GSMA's learning in 18 months. Is the key one, and especially, and this is adapted from Indonesia, is we need to build on 4G foundations. We need to make sure the 4G foundations are strong and robust. We need to drive mobile broadband, start the ecosystem growth, start the innovation, and start to attract the innovation, and make sure that when we start to compete with other countries for investment and innovation in the 5G space, is that we have an attractive ecosystem platform. Number two is the whole of government, and I'm very encouraged by Dr. Ismail's words about how this 5G is to solve a national transformation. It's not just about regulating the mobile industry and allocating some spectrum. It's actually for a purpose for digital Indonesia. The third one has been mentioned of the task force, and where we would certainly recommend that as a best practice, as making sure you have a task force having stakeholders have ability to work together. And then, and already know that the aim or the need is to have a defined timetable. 5G is a long game. We talk about in Indonesia, we expect penetration of 5G by 2025 is less than 10%. So we are talking the 5G generation to really run at least 10 to 15 years before it's really the dominant technology. Next slide. So from what's GSMA doing in this space, and how are we supporting governments and operators? And so in the case of Indonesia, how are we going to support the support we offer? So in Asia Pacific, we build communities of operators and governments with similar interests and share information and expertise and best practice. And the key communities that we have that are applicable to Indonesia, and we already have operators as part of these, is our IoT Innovation Partner Program, which is now starting to transition into a 5G focus after being not on 5G for the last couple of years. And we have 2 5G specific forums, of which Indonesia is really core to a 5G emerging economies community. So they're the leading nations, not 5G, and the APAC 5G Forum, which is the pioneer countries, so the Korea and Japan. But it's also very interesting for operators and policymakers from Indonesia to also get access to see the APAC 5G Forum, because then you get to see what is at the leading edge, what are the pioneers dealing with, and then consider it against their own characteristics. From a policy, regulatory modernisation for digital future, we have an APAC policy group of which all the operators, most of the operators in Indonesia are part of, and we have a whole of government framework for Industry 4.0, because digital transformation is very much related to a whole of government and Industry 4.0. And then we actually have resources specifically allocated for Indonesia as a leading nation. Indonesia, we do see as becoming a champion in the region. I mean, it's not just the biggest, but also the leader. And we're certainly happy to work with the ministry and the industry in Indonesia to help on that journey. And we're happy to be contacted about that. So with that, next slide, I think that's just it. So thank you very much and for the opportunity, and we look forward to working with the industry and the stakeholders on this call in the coming years with 5G journey.
Yes, Mr. Julian Gorman, Head of Asia Pacific for the GSMA. Thank you for the insight. We get a lot of input about Indonesia digital transformation and 5G future, how the transformation is needed to accelerate the technology usage facing the cases that occurs in Indonesia, and also the principle for 5G sustainable to solve the Indonesian problem. We need to build on 4G foundation, whole of a government approach, ecosystem or task force engagement, and also how important to define the timeline to execute. Once again, thank you very much, Mr. Julian Gorman, representative of GSMA. Ibu Bapak, seluruh peserta kami ingatkan kembali untuk pertanyaan bisa langsung ke Q&A box. So please type your question. If you have any question during the presentation, type them in the Q&A box. We will have time for Q&A after all the presentation from the panelists. Okay, now I may request Mr. Choi Young Jin, representative of GSA, the chairman of Asia Pacific Spectrum Management of GSA, to deliver his presentation about the roadmap of 5G devices and equipment. Mr. Choi Young Jin.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you clearly.
Yes. Once again, thank you. Thank you so much. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Hyungjin Choi, chair of GSA APT team. And also I'm in charge of the spectrum manner for mobile communication, especially 5G and 6G in my company, Samsung. First of all, I'm very thankful MCI for inviting GSA to this wonderful conference. On behalf of GSA, I'm very honored to have this opportunity to speak at this great conference. To begin with my presentation, I need to say sorry that I cannot share my camera in my office due to my company policy. So I seek for your kind understanding. Okay. So could you show up my material?
Yes, a moment, please.
Okay. Okay, thank you. So from now on, I'd like to start my presentation. Next, please. My slide consists of the total 5 items. So as the first item, I'd like to introduce the GSA and our activity briefly. So next, please. GSA, as Global Mobile Supplier Association, is representing the global mobile ecosystem since 1998. Now, GSA, we have 7 board company members supporting global mobile networks and devices such as the Ericsson, Intel, Huawei, Nokia, Qualcomm, Samsung, and GT. We actively support industry development by providing industry reports and database such as the Gambot. GSA Spectrum Group and its sub-teams are fully supporting spectrum harmonization, information provision, and technical support, etc. We are cooperating and collaborating with various other global, regional, and national organizations for mobile communication. Next, please. As you can see from this slide, GSA Spectrum Group has several teams work for regional and global manners. GSA is covering 6 sub-regional groups identified ITU in conjunction with the WS issues, and several global and issue teams. At present, more than 100 spectrum experts global are working for spectrum aspects as a GSA member. Okay, next please. And GSA APT team is working with global teams and other regional teams within GSA. Additionally, we are closely working with regional national bodies such as the regulator, standard bodies, organizations. As you can see, APT team has 2 issue teams supporting important issue in ASEAN and Australia and New Zealand area. I work for GSA as APT team chair during this year to next year, and then we'll switch to Ms. Lu Boya from 2022 to 2023. She will be the chair position for APT team next period. GSA APT team as well as ASEAN issue team will contribute Indonesia spectrum and technical matters as much as we can. So if you have any request and question, please contact us. Okay, next please. This is the second part of my slides. Through these slides, I'd like to show the our spectrum vision. There is no doubt spectrum is key to realize the mobile communication of 5G. As indicated, recommendation IQR M2083 as a 5G vision, the 5G will support the 3 types of the usage scenario, EMBB, URLLC, MMTCs. In order to connect the world 5G and realize the 5G vision, all kinds of spectrum should be available, especially low, mid, and high bands are mandatory to realize 5G and spectrum business. Based on this concept and insight, large contiguous amount of harmonized spectrum in low, mid, high bands with suitable regulatory conditions would be the goal and target. Okay, next, please. This slide approaching the more detail from the previous slide. Each spectrum low, mid, high bands will supply coverage, capacity, and ultra experience in diverse area and environments. Okay, next, please. Please go back the previous slide. Oh, maybe one slide missing. Okay, next, please. Okay, so this slide, part 3, candidate band for Indonesia 5G. Okay, next, please. From the Indonesia presentation at the 6th APEC Spectrum Management Conference in this August, we GSA fully aware Indonesia deeply considered several spectrum bands in order to realize Indonesia target until 2024 for 5G spectrum, more than 2 gigahertz bandwidth in low, mid, and high bands. And also today, the previous session, the Indonesia government introduced the plan. So as I stressed several times in previous slides, low, mid, and high bands are not optional. Those are mandatory for successful Indonesia 5G. Therefore, GSA fully support Indonesia's approach seeking for the low, mid, and high bands for 5G. And as indicated in the presentation by the MCI SDPPI, 700 in the low band, 2.3, 2.6, 3.3, and 3.5 gigahertz in mid band, as well as 26, 28 gigahertz band in high band. Those spectrums be taken into account for Indonesia 5G. So we recognize the 2.3 gigahertz band as one of the candidate bands are under auction process from November, so that we hope the look forward to hearing the Indonesia will continue to secure and provide the other candidates band. Okay, next please. This slide I captured the table from the 3GPP technical specification in order to show which bands are being supported by 3GPP technology. Candidate band considered by Indonesia government are already well defined as 5G NL operating bands in 3GPP. This means the all the candidate bands are available and ready, not only technical and standardization phase, but also implementation and commercialization phase. So you can check your candidate band listed on in this table. Okay, next please. Okay, from now on, I'd like to show global status and the readiness of 5G. Next, please. Our GSA report show that the 5G, excuse me, could you go back the slide? Slide number 14. Oh, it's very strange. Anyway, okay, next, please. Next, please. Okay, so skip up the one slide, but I can introduce the that slide missing. So our GSA report, no, go they're proceeding forward. Please go back. Okay, here. So the 5G network global very spread quickly. So now around the 19% of the all LTE net mobile network operator have deployed the 5G as the end of the November, and more than the 100 commercial 5G network available in the around the 60 country at this moment. Okay. So this slide shows that the low, mid, and high bands are being licensed issued for 5G band worldwide. There are around the 300 licensed for 5G issued as the end of this November. As shown in this slide, a number of the licenses are realized for 5G in low, mid, and high bands. In particular, 700, 2.3, 2.6, and C-band range and millimeter wave bands, especially 26, 28, as in the Indonesia 5G candidate spectrum bands are already commercialized in the world. Therefore, there is no reason to hesitate introduce those spectrum in India for 5G, I believe. Okay, next page. 5G ecosystem, such as the chipset device and equipment for Indonesia's 5G candidate bands are ready, we believe. Smartphone, laptop, CP, hotspot devices, any kinds of form factor of device are commercialized and implemented at the present. In conjunction with this facts and the basement, I'd like to emphasize the equipment such as the base stations and the united solutions are already available. Okay, next please. This slide showed which country issued the license in millimeter wave band. Since 2018, 5G licensing in millimeter wave bands are increasing worldwide. Around 18 licenses, and of which 23 deployed as of November. Starting from 26 and 20 gigahertz band, also other high bands like the 40 gigahertz range would also be appeared soon, I believe. Next, please. In case of the 2.6 gigahertz, as one of the candidate bands for Indonesia 5G, this band is one of the key bands for 4G as well as the 5G in the world at present. And now spectrum migrations in several countries are being proceeded for making 5G paradigm in this band. So 5G licensing in this band will increasing in Asia Pacific region. Example, Thailand, Philippines, and other countries looking at this band for their mobile communications. Next, please. Okay, for this conference, I'd like to capture C-band situation as representing mid-band situation global. In Asia Pacific region, including Indonesia, many countries are looking at this spectrum range for 5G. As however, many countries are leveraging this 3.5 gigahertz bands as their first 5G network rollout. Because Indonesia is also considering this spectrum band as a fully support for Indonesia to introduce the 5G network in this band as soon as possible. Okay, next please. Yes, this slide provides information how much other regions and country are interested in the 3.5 gigahertz band for their 5G. So similar with the Asia Pacific region, introducing 5G network supporting the mid-band are increasing in other regions. Okay, next, please. Okay, this slide, I'd like to introduce global high band situation, especially this slide shows the Asia Pacific situation. So both 26 and 20 gigahertz band are being considered for 5G in several Asia Pacific countries. Some countries already allocate the to their mobile operators and providing some service, and other countries the plan to set up this band for their 5G. So due to spectrum availability and the worldwide very wide bandwidth possibility in those spectrum bands, we believe this band representing as the first 5G spectrum in high bands. Okay, next, please. This is information as well to provide the how much other region country are interested in millimeter wave bands. Okay, next, please. This is the example of initial 5G deployments in China, Japan, and Korea, which country are already providing their 5G service. Even though not much subscribers in 3 countries at this moment, due to just the beginning stage at this moment, I believe the number of the subscribed 5G and data consumption for 5G mobile data will be highly increasing in near future. Before starting today's conference, I got the new update information from Korea government. Korea as a country start 5G commercialized service from last year April. Today, 5G subscribers reached more than 10 million. Okay, next, please. This is also one example from the other region, the Brighton Wireless company in the United States. By using their 5G network, supporting a millimeter wave band, high performance and experience of 5G service are being realized at several big sports events, for example. So if you have any interesting, you can find the several devices, the service from the this operators the website. Okay, next, please. Okay, now I'm approaching the last part 5, digital transformation and economy by 5G. Okay, next, please. One of the GSA member company studied how 5G contribute to drive digital transformation and economy by 5G. I'd like to cite some points from the study result. So we believe 5G will lift mobile into a technology that changed the world, including Indonesia. As a key infrastructure, 5G will benefit entire economies and societies. Countries would accelerate their 5G deployment toward stepping up their potential and digital transformation. As you can see from this slide, 5G will give impact to all economic aspects, such as the sales, marketing, job opportunity, and GDP growth. The upper part of this slide explains the global forecast, the point of view for those economic aspects. Below part, more focusing on the Indonesia. The ITB the paper titled Unlocking the 5G Potential for Digital Economy in Indonesia showed that by 2030, tremendous effects and benefit for GDP growth, job opportunities, and other economic aspects by 5G would be foreseen an increase in Indonesia. Okay, next please. So this is the my last slide for today's conference. So through this slide, on behalf of GSA, I'd like to emphasize and recommend several points. Number one, the 5G standard already being enhanced. Number two, 5G ecosystem, the device equipment, anything else in place and expanding. Number three, spectrum licensing for 5G in low, mid, high bands is essential for 5G era. And number four, all kinds of 5G devices and equipment are ready for Indonesia 5G. And finally, number five, just a praise a successful auction process of the 2.3 GHz band at current the proceeding. Board of GSA recommend for Indonesia to license a spectrum for 5G from next year in low, mid, and high band in order to realize Indonesia 5G era. So this is the conclusion of my presentation. Thank you very much for your attention. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much, Mr. Cho Young-jin, Chairman of Asia Pacific Spectrum Management Team of GSA. Even we cannot see your face, but your expose give us so much input and feedback. Once again, thank you very much for the overview about roadmap of 5G devices and equipment. Hopefully all the attendees still enthusiastic and still enjoy this session, because we still have one speaker. Ibu Bapak yang saya hormati, semoga tetap bersemangat karena kita masih punya satu lagi panelis yang akan membahas bagaimana sih sebenarnya kesiapan Indonesia, terutama dari industri telekomunikasi dalam mengimplementasikan 5G ini. Apakah kemudian hanya melulu masalah spektrum, kemudian bagaimana juga pengembangan infrastruktur jaringan dan layanan, juga monetasi jaringan 5G ini. For detail, I would like to invite our last speaker, Mr. Marwan Umar Basir, Secretary General of Indonesia Telco Operators Association. Langsung saja kami persilakan. Ya.
Baik, terima kasih Bu Wardahnya atas kesempatannya. Mungkin apa saya sudah bisa mulai atau saya masih nunggu?
Mohon maaf Pak Marwan, suaranya bisa diperjelas kembali. Ya. Udah
bisa mulai apa masih nunggu?
Ya, luar biasa, sudah lebih jelas sekarang Pak. Silakan Pak.
Baik kalau kita. Terima kasih ini waktunya. Mungkin slide-nya dari sana apa bisa? Slide-nya bisa dari sana Bu Wardah?
Baik, kami akan bantu Bapak.
Baik. Baik, terima kasih Bu Wardania. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for the opportunity today that ATSI is being invited to give some input or concern on 5G, especially on the readiness for Indonesia telco, right, on the implementation of 5G. Next. I think we have 5 agenda that we want to share with you in this webinar forum. And next, I think, if I'm telling the story a little bit, if I'm remember that 2014, all operator is prepare for trial on 4G, and the preparation is quite very good, supported by Mochit, and we've been about 1.5 years on that trial on 4G, and it's successful, very successful on 4G. And then until the rollout started in 2015 or early 2016, now 4G is becoming very popular. Most of the current situation during pandemic, people are using 4G as a basis of their activities. And we believe that the strategy of human life is also changing, or the lifestyle of human life also changing. Right? Home is becoming central of gravity. So this is what we are call it the center of activity. Everything is going to be in a home. Probably the next 5 years, we will see most of the activity of human being is going to be 50-50, 50% to 50%. And the strategy of operator also been changing. The capacity not in going to be, will be not in central business district anymore. It will be in suburban, in rural, in the activity where are the human being as a central activity. I think this page we can skip because I think Amir already was mentioning, Pak Dirjen is already mentioning, and I think for this 1 day, I think attendant I already see this page is almost 3 times, I think, including myself. So I think can we skip this page? I don't need too many speak on this page 3. Can we go next? Next. I think also Julian already mentioning about the valuation. Can we go next? Next, Pak Aryo. Next. Okay, now when I was see the situation as of today, the capacity of spectrum is very needed. And we've been discussed in the board of ATSI several times when we talk about 5G. The discussion based on a lot of study that we are reading and find out, and our reference, at the early 2020, we cannot find any business model for 5G. And we have struggled to find a business model. In the end, the investment have to be returned, right? It's not only a technical expertise, technical capabilities, or technical knowledge, but in the end, we need to make sure the investor how the business model is going to be returned the investment. In terms of the engineering capabilities, we agreed probably either the spectrum on 700, 2600, 3500, or 26 giga, or 28 giga, even 40 giga as a millimeter wave. And in the end, that we need to see is only two: avoidable spectrum fee and investment and total cost ownership. How we return it, that is very important. How the low band, mid band, and high band combine the model. So we can make sure to the investor or to the shareholder how we return it this from the big kind of business model. Pandemic showing a new business model. Conference, webinar, and the meetings through digital forum need 5G. 4G probably is going to be already fully occupied. And that's why we need new regime of regulation on this. Right? How we going to be efficiently running a rollout 5G. Last year, we really struggled to find out. This is probably the positive side or the benefits situation from the positive side of the pandemic. We need to see from the positive and negative. From the positive side, we see that This is the time, probably. This is the business model we are looking for. Last year, until last year, probably people are still having difficulty to doing video meeting or video conference meeting. But now, most of the people, even school and education, telemedicine, right, autonomous system as IoT and everything is using a technology basis. Next, Pak Aryo. Next. Okay. No, number 4. I think before page. This one. Okay. This is the main page, I think. To be able successful in running 5G, we need a real use case, as I mentioned. Trial 5G in 2017 is and present, we done it already. All operator is done it. But we are happy to see 5G devices. What the difference? During 4G trial, the most device readiness is only high-end. But now, 5G, I think the Chinese manufacturing, Chinese R&D, like most of Chinese R&D doing very well. They deploy device 5G readiness in mid and low end. So when 5G roll out, probably the low mid end and low end device is be ready in the market already. During 4G, we are only looking at 4G in a high end device. So this is the difference, and we will see what is our homework now. Number 1. We have to run very efficiently. That's why we see implementation of multi-band high-order antenna or active antenna to capacity enhancement, sector optimizing, and reducing tower loading, very needed in Indonesia. We need it. And this is to find very efficient costs. So in order later on, our retail tariff is going to be avoidable. Number 2, implementation on single RAN and 5G based support to accelerate adoption of 5G existing device. This is also on the access of the network. This is one of the very important things. Trial dynamic spectrum for 4G and 5G dual connectivity. This is what we thought is going to be a lot of challenging. Orang trial in collaboration, ATSI and other partners, as Pak Dirjen already mentioning, this is also running well. Hopefully it's running well. Then 3G spectrum, refarming to 4G and strengthening 4G in preparation of 5G. So I think we need to see from the total cost of ownership how the investment of 3G. But I think thanks when we have last meeting with Minister and Pak Joni was mentioning, do it soon as possible for refarming of 3G to 4G. So we are verbally discussed with the Minister, then we get a supported for this. And thanks to Mochit, this is a very good support, and all the operator heavily to probably having a plan and execution implementation to move to 4G. And the transport situation, we need a government support. I think I read in the media online today, one of our expert partners was mentioning the delay of running 5G is going to be in the transport. This is true. We need a central government to socialize and to make all the leaders in regional or state, city or state major of city or province government or state government to understand when they're talking about economic digital. It's useless we talk about 5G if we don't have fiber. So we need to to remind all of them, we need this affordable tariff in deployment fiber. Otherwise, we have a difficulty. Our technology is going to be 5G in last mile, but transport-wise, we don't ready. So 5G feel like 4G in the end. So we need to remind all of them. We need to socialize to all of them that we need a fiber. Please, any distribution or regulatory charges for fiber be affordable. It's a good if a state major city who not even taking any regulatory charges from fiber is free. They can get a free incremental tax from the economy. For example, they can get the incremental from e-commerce or from other economic factors. I read the paper of the Philippine president who have a vision on this issue and on ICT, and he trying to. I think not this period of president, the last president, the woman one. I forgot the name. He was mentioning about the low regulatory charges. So this is to enhance the technology is coming in. In the core network, I think thanks to Omnibus Law, the easy of doing business on data center now is going to be encouraged. So it's a good if we have a data center node in several areas to reduce latency and then to improve network scalability, control and user plan separation, right? And then implementation of 5G non-standalone core network to support node. And I think this is from the network modernization going to 5G. Next. So this is our concern, because ATSI is a non-profit organization, and which is all operator a member. So this is all operator concern. Passive active infrastructure acceleration. We are mentioning how the central government, province government, state government can sit down together to synchronize and give easiness for us to running the license on fiber optic to fulfill the requirement of 5G. So do not, we hope that the affordable tariff on regulatory charges, good if they can implement free. The most free city is the most easier to get a 5G or 4G. I believe that. I was talked the other day with a Jogja city major. I talked with Banyuwangi as well, and all of them have a vision to run the technology deployment on to support economic digital. And implementation of active infra sharing model between mobile operator will be mutually beneficial B2B. In a 5G spectrum issue, band allocation, bandwidth allocation. I think Julian also mentioned, Pak Dirjen is also mentioned. Spectrum fee, this is two sides of the same coin as I mentioned, right? The other side, government would like to have a very high-tech technology, but the other side, government want to have a high income. This is quite difficult, right? It's no other formula if you want to have high digital economy in the country, but at the same time you want to have a spectrum be very high. You are a stakeholder. I mean, a government part of the stakeholder, right? Operator ARPU is decreasing, right? The affordability to pay from the user also is not so high anymore. So government income, please, you need to decrease as well your expectation, right? This is a good for the industry. Cooperation in spectrum utilization based on omnibus law. This is a cooperation spectrum pooling, spectrum sharing, spectrum leasing, spectrum what's called transfer. I think this is part of it. But the other issue probably need to be addressed, which license model will Mochit set in 5G era. Is there any additional license? We hope there is no other license. We hope we don't need another player. Right? We have so many trial and we fail already. You have already 5 big operator or 6 big operator. Keep the 6 to be healthy. It's very good. There should be a modern license model that can be support 5G acceleration, given a free commitment or population coverage. That is even better. We don't need to talk about base station to base station any longer, but we discuss about population coverage. We have a 6,000 kecamatan, and I think today population is between 90 to 96% in the average of all operator. So 93% of our population is in 3,400 kecamatan. That 93%. 7% is about 3,200 kecamatan is in 7% population. So you can imagine how difficult to build the coverage in that 7% population, which is stay in 3,200 kecamatan. So, Bapak Ibu, I think that is a challenge for ATSI, all the members of ATSI, for government, and I think our citizens need to understand how the archipelago of Indonesia is so big for 17,000 islands. I think that is my last slide. Thank you very much for inviting me, Kominfo. Hopefully the concern and all ATSI concern can be addressed, and we see better Indonesia. Stay healthy and stay happy. Thank you very much. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Stay healthy too. Thank you very much, Mr. Marwan Umar Basir from ATSI. Sekali lagi terima kasih Sekjen Asosiasi Penyelenggara Telekomunikasi Seluruh Indonesia ATSI, Bapak Marwan Umar Basir, for your presentation about the readiness of telecommunication operator in Indonesia to implement 5G. Okay, honorable panelists, ladies and gentlemen, all the exposures by our 4 speakers on this session have accomplished. I do hope that all of you will get more information and insight. And now we are moving to the discussion time. We have around 15 minutes for Q&A. And we already received the question. You can chat on the Q&A box. I would like to read the first question from Mrs. Yvette Chitra from Balmond, Balmond PKI. The question addressed to Mr. Julian Gorman. With the implementation of 5G, what are the possible interference that will appear or arise? Okay, that's a question from Mrs. Yvette Chitra to GSMA. The next question addressed to Director General of SDPPI. The question is from Tony. Will other 4G existing frequency be used for 5G by operator on Indonesia? And then next question addressed to Mr. Choi. Mr. Choi Yung from GSA. The question is, while the 5G network brings with it many benefits, or particularly high speed, it will take some time before it can rival the existing fiber networks. Fiber will remain the predominant form of communication for the majority of business, but 5G will play an important role in the Internet of Things, IoT. Then how 5G offers will be better than fiber? This question addressed to representative of GSA. And for Mr. Marwan, what is the most challenging issue in implementing 5G in Indonesia? Okay, that's all the question to all the panelists.
May I start or?
Okay. I will give a chance to Mr. Marwan first.
Okay. I think the most challenging, as I mentioned, is a fiber optic. Pak Dirjen, Pak Is was mentioning, it's true. Number one, of course, we see the spectrum, how the spectrum is coming, but I think we see the light of the tunnel now, right? 3.5 is there, 26 is there. Pak Denny and Pak Adis, Pak Ismail is working on it, and I believe we will have sooner. The spectrum is going to be there on either 700 or 2600. 3500 or even 26 giga and 28 giga. But I think the next challenge is going to be very challenging because we're not talking only to one institution. Spectrum, we're talking only to Mojib, one institution. But fiber optic, we're talking to many government in local government, 34 province, 545 local government. And then business entities, right? Building and how we can coming into the building. One of the good thing in the Omnibus law, any business entity have to open the door for any access of fiber optic or any technology. But now how central government can make sure those clauses or article in Omnibus law implementing well. That is the real issue. That is the real issue. Otherwise, we're going to be facing the same thing. And this is about mindset. In the end, this is about mindset. We have a real problem in one of the city major. We've been discussing almost 3 years, and up to now, we're not finishing the problem. Up to now, nobody is understand what is the need for telco on fiber optic. This is on fiber optic. A very high tariff, and while the city needs the technology to be there. So when we always discuss if the cost of regulatory is very high, probably in the end operators should increase the tariff, the retail tariff. In the end, the quota per giga is increasing. This is the reality. So I think that our biggest challenge, Wardania, to answer the question. Hopefully, everybody is realized and can help to socialize every city to understand how 5G is needed later on the fiber optic. Thank you.
Okay. Next, the question addressed to Mr. Julian Gorman.
Sure. So the question was around what are the possible interference that will appear with 5G. The development of 5G technology and spectrum allocation began almost a decade ago. And today, I mean, all nations around the world are taking steps to make that agreed spectrum or spectrum allocations available. And part of that process is to ensure that no interference and conflict exists when the spectrum is allocated. So it means vacating spectrum and reallocating. And it's the same approach as previous generations. It's not different. The difference with 5G is the magnitude or the scale of spectrum that needs to be made available. 5G spectrum requirements are more than all the previous generations combined. So it may seem like there's much more risk of interference or anything else, but it's the same process. The spectrum is allocated for mobile use. It's a licensed spectrum, and there's guard bands and all sorts of things. So there should be no interference or complications arise when it comes to spectrum.
Okay. Okay, thank you. And then next, I would like to invite Mr. Adis Alfiawan from MCI to answer the next question about from Tony.
Okay.
Please.
Okay, thank you, MC. So to answer the question from Mr. Tony, I would like to highlight the key policy in Indonesia, which we already been implemented since years ago about the neutral technology. About the neutral technology, it means that all the spectrum license already been granted to the cellular operator. They can use it to adapt to the newest technology. So all 4G spectrum bands finally will be revamped by the operators to the newest technology, which will deliver the highest spectrum efficiency. It means that 4G bands will be also shared with 5G traffics. We have a new feature in the newest chipset, if I'm not mistaken. Maybe will be clarified by Mr. Choi that there is already a chipset functioning the dynamic spectrum sharing function and also carrier aggregation in a more advanced way. It means that 4G existing bands will also be gradually used for handling 5G traffics in Indonesia. So yeah, it will. The answer definitely is yes. Thank you.
Yes. Thank you. And next, Mr. Choi Young-jin, you still join with us?
Okay, thank you. So I'm very sorry. Do I need to reply the question?
Yeah. Let me read that question once again. While the 5G network brings many benefits, it will take some time before it can rival the existing fiber networks. Fiber will remain the predominant form of communication for the majority of business, but 5G will play an important role in the IoT. So how 5G offers will be better than fiber network?
Okay, thank you. So as I replied through the webinar system, I agree. Fiber system that will be the predominant and permanent infrastructure to support communication, focusing on the fixed broadband environment. However, 5G as the wireless system that enables varied usage scenarios, the eMBB, URLC, and MMTC, the via wireless environments. So I believe the 5G will realize the traditional communications, like the 3G, 4G, as well as the other industry area like vertical. At this moment, the mobile industry, focusing on the vertical through the 5G technology. So we believe the 5G will benefit and offer then a fiber then connecting a variety of communication and industry area. If I may add one more thing, the fiber is the very good communication infrastructure. However, there has some limitation when the fiber system deployed. So that dig out the ground. So the so many limitation that will be occurred through the fiber system. So the 5G will provide the freedom to communicate with each other, and the will provide the very diverse service the two other industry like the vertical. So that is my answer at this moment. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Choi Young-jin. That's all for the answer. One more question to Mr. Mas Adis. Yeah, from Mr. Sigit Jatiputro, Secretary General of Satellite Association. The question is regarding to spectrum sharing on 3.3 until 3.5 gigahertz and 26 until 28 gigahertz. We know this will create impact on satellite interference with XC band and HTS satellite that just launched. So what kind of protection and mitigation level to make sure the satellite link still can operate in all regions in Indonesia, and who will coverage the potential loss or risk about the spectrum?
Thank you, Nia. So I will answer the question. First of all, last month, from October until November, we already conducted the field trial in Bandung to test the coexistence issue between 5G and FSS in 3.5 gigahertz band. The trial already succeeded, and we have tried to mitigate the potential interference by three alternative mechanisms. One is the additional filter. Second one is the guard band, 100 megahertz, and the third one, we also exercise the separation distance between the 5G transmitter and also the receiver of the satellite. So there will be a next step. There will be a evaluation of the result of the trial, and after that, as what already been explained by our DG, Pak Ismail, mentioned that regarding the business aspect or the economic impact of this migration or reallocation, it will be discussed after the technical issues. So it will be a serial discussion. First is the technical, and then the second one is the let's say the compensation scheme. From the existing regulation we have today in Government Regulation number 53, year 2000, there is a possibility of the newcomer, the new user of this frequency band, to compensate all the risks coming from the incumbent users of this band. But it's not only the case, because from the government there will be also a transition period being given for the incumbent to migrate to another band, or maybe to do some adjustment to their network. Maybe this is the cover or the answer. I hope that this cover all the question regarding 3.5 gigahertz band. I saw many questions raised in this particular issues. Thank you, Nia.
Yeah, thank you, Mas Adis. And before we complete all this conference, one more question untuk Bapak Marwan Umar Bashir. Pak Marwan, why this question from Universitas Diponegoro?
Okay.
Dari Bapak Habib, why 5G technology is believed as one of the important key for empowering a national digital transformation in Indonesia, while we have a powerful 4G connection and fiber optic. Is 5G has a real significant for it? On what makes it so significant? Please, Mr. Marwan.
Yeah, I think as I mentioned by Amir before, right? And we see that what is it? The category and specification, technical specification. The speed is 10 times more. Latency is reducing, a lot of reducing in the latency, right? So I think we believe that probably the 5G is a much better than 4G. If on the business side, I think we are see that 5G is better experience. We did some testing already in 5G, and we see the speed is very high. I think even in Asian game, I think in a lot of operator is done it, even in the venue, even in the area of kota, right? The speed is very high speed, and then I know the investment is going to be very high. I think that is the challenge that a business model is already there. The use case is there already. Pandemic is showing the needs of 5G, and which last year we are still struggle to find a use case. Now I think the use case is there. Hopefully the device price is gonna be affordable. I think that's it, Wardania.
Ya, Pak Marwan, terima kasih. Okay, distinguished panelists and participants, ladies and gentlemen, may I thank you very much for your participation in the 5G conference. We have all passed all the session, and once again, thank you very much. And as a conclusion, we really expect feedback and recommendation, especially from ITU, GSMA, GSA, ATSI, and all stakeholders to this 5G initial roadmap in Indonesia. As we know that Indonesia is the largest economy in Southeast Asia, and the 5G roadmap is needed to provide affordable 5G services. And as the government target for frequency spectrum of mobile broadband in Indonesia until the end of 2024 is 2047 megahertz, and there is a roadmap to gather additional spectrum in the time frame of 2020 until 2024, minimum 1,310 megahertz. Okay, once again, thank you very much. Hope that the insight, input, and feedback really beneficial for Indonesia 5G initial roadmap. I'm Wardahnia. Stay safe, stay healthy, and see you soon in next upcoming event. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. But before we finish this, I would like to sharing the polling result. Okay, let's see it together. In your opinion, when should 5G be held in Indonesia? 19% answer now. 35% in 2021, 33% in 2022, 9% in 2023, and after 2023 is 11%. So most of the participant wants that 5G should be held in Indonesia on 2021. It means next year, right? Yeah, we hope so, yeah. And then the next question, what will be the 5G killer application in Indonesia? Fixed wireless residential broadband service called 5G home, 34%. Industry 4.0, 37%, hologram meeting 70%, 17%, e-health 21%, critical mission, ultra reliable, low latency communication is around 22%, IoT 35%, and all of them 33%, known 1%. Almost participant say that industry 4.0. Okay, next, how much are you willing to pay for 5G service? And 1 million or 7 USD per month. It's around 9%. Mostly one cheaper than that. It's 68%. Okay, thank you very much. That's all. Yeah, thank you for filling out the polling. And don't forget all the materials from the panelists you can get from the link, and e-certificate too. To all the participants you will get on the link that we already upload or share. Once again, thank you very much, Mr. Julian Gorman, Mr. Choi Yoon Jin, Mr. Marwan Wad Basir, Mas Adis, kemudian juga Bapak Ibu semuanya, sekali lagi terima kasih, selalu jaga kesehatan. Pak Denny juga terima kasih, dan juga rekan-rekan dari Ditjen SDPPI luar biasa. Semoga ini memberikan input dan masukan yang terbaik untuk kita semua. Salam 5G, sampai jumpa. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Thank you, Julian.
Thank you. Hope to see you soon, everybody.
Thank you very much. Thank you much.
Alhamdulillah.